Everybody, Bryan Alvarez here, After Dark Radio. We are here every Wednesday, 2 Pacific, 5 Eastern, here on Sports Byline USA Broadcasting Network, streaming live, twitch.tv/F4W Video. That is twitch.tv/F4W Video. And if you have Amazon Prime, you can get a free Twitch subscription to our channel. Just go to twitch.tv/F4W Video, hit the subscribe button, and it'll ask you, you want to use your Amazon Prime account? You say yes. It's a free perk. You pay nothing. It is a free perk from Amazon Prime. You can watch this show every Wednesday. YouTube, f4wonline.com/YouTube, which is also free, so you can check it out there. And as noted, tune in radio for Sports Byline USA if you don't have an affiliate in your area. We got a lot to get into on the show today. No guest this week. Last week we were joined by Stan Deyo, who we almost didn't get on the show, but man, we made it work in that second segment. And we just kind of got going. And we got into a lot of topics. And he's going to be returning to the show at some point down the road. But there was a news article this week that kind of played into something he was talking about last week, so I'm going to get into that on the show here today. But a lot of what we're going to be talking about today, I know some of you are thinking, my God, Bigfoot again. A little bit. But really, I want to talk a little bit about apes, which does tie into Bigfoot. But, and this isn't really so much paranormal, but I guess it kind of all ties together. So we're going to talk a little bit about apes today. We've also got a lot of news articles. There is potentially a Planet 9. There used to be a Planet 9 when I was a kid, and then it was demoted. Well, they may have uncovered evidence of a new Planet 9. We'll tell you about that, as well as some other animal stories, including... did you know, you probably did know this from listening to the show, crows are smarter than I am? Yes, crows can do geometry. AI models for talking to dolphins. A lot to get into here today. It's going to be fun. Back in a moment with more After Dark Radio Sports Byline Broadcasting Network. Bryan Alvarez here, After Dark Radio, here every Wednesday, 2 Pacific, 5 Eastern, live Sports Byline Broadcasting Network. Should have some time to do some emails today, so you can send them to me, Bryan at AfterDarkRadioShow.com. That is Bryan at AfterDarkRadioShow.com. Got a lot of topics. You can really send it any email about anything on your mind that fits into this show. But of late, we've been doing, what strange things have happened in your hometown. What stories have you been told? Weird stories your grandparents told you? Which actually I could tell one here, but I'll do that in a little while. And then what else have we done? Topics for this show, like what interests you? We're always looking for good guests, but is there a certain topic that you would like us to tackle, or maybe a specific story? Give me some details about that. Your telekinesis, your, visions and dreams perhaps you had that came true, that are too weird to be coincidence. So if you have any of these, would you please send them to me, Bryan at AfterDarkRadioShow.com. We can read some here on the air. And sometimes I tweet this out and people respond on like X or whatever. Don't do that. Email me, Bryan at AfterDarkRadioShow.com. And before we get going further here, Producer Dom, I have a question. You there?
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right. 1 ape, 100 men. Who wins?
If the men are willing to all go at the same time, they can win by suffocating the ape. Otherwise, the ape destroys them.
Really? You think so, huh? All right. Thank you. I asked that question because it's been all over the internet last couple of weeks. Could 100 men take 1 ape? And everyone has all of the, they show videos of, they find some video of some ape at the zoo that charges and smashes into that big, 8-inch thick glass and manages to crack it. And so everyone's been doing their theories about would 100 men beat 1 ape? And I got the answer. But I'll tell you about that after a while. First, however, before we get into that, which does, by the way, play into Bigfoot, that 1 ape versus 100 men, I do want to mention that last week we had Stan Deo on the show. And, Stan Deo has been around since the early days of Art Bell, and we only scratched the surface last week. I mean, we had what, a half hour with Stan Deo? Stan Deo could go for about 9 years talking nonstop about various things. And, one of the things we talked about was there's 2 big discoveries that Stan Deo says he has made. One of them we talked about last week, which was Stan Deo believes he has discovered the historic biblical Garden of Eden. Yes. And he also believes that he has discovered the location of Atlantis. He has discovered both of these places. Now, when we talk about the Bible here, there's the religious aspect of the Bible. Perhaps you're a Christian. And then obviously when you think about reading the Bible, there's the historical Bible as well. Most people believe that there was a person, a Jesus, an actual historical Jesus. And whether you believe that he was the Son of God, that's irrelevant to this discussion, whether there is proof that there was actually a Jesus. And, you read the story in Genesis about the Garden of Eden. And, there are certainly people who believe it is an actual place. The Lord put down the 2 people, and then everything went exactly as it says in the Bible. And others obviously believe, well, that's not actually true. It's an allegory. There wasn't an actual garden. There wasn't an actual tree of life and tree of knowledge, etc. This is a story. So, whatever you believe is whatever you believe. But I did see this, which kind of ties into Stan Deo's belief that he found the actual historical Garden of Eden. He says the location of the trees, the tree of life, the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Stan Deo says these are not allegories. These are actual trees. And archaeologists, this in the Irish Star, believe they have discovered the historic tomb of Jesus with unbelievable evidence, it says here. Recent finds in Jerusalem have remarkable parallels to the Bible's description and depiction of Jesus' burial place. Architects have pinpointed a site which echoes the Gospel of John's portrayal. The Gospel of John says, "Now in the place where he was crucified there was a garden, and in the garden a new sepulchre." I actually don't know how to pronounce that word, to be honest with you. I've read it 1,000 times. "Wherein was never man yet laid, there they laid Jesus." Evidence of ancient olive trees and grapevines have been confirmed by archaeobotanical studies and pollen tests on samples from beneath the centuries-old basilica, indicating a pre-Christian timeline, although radiocarbon dating is still pending. This professor here says, "We know the area was already part of the city at the time of Emperor Hadrian, when the Romans built Aelia Capitolina. However, at the time of Jesus, the area was not part of the city yet. The belief held by Christians that Jesus' crucifixion and entombment happened where the Church of the Holy Sepulchre now stands, with Calvary or Golgotha as its backdrop, and it continues to endure. So they've been leading this charge. They've been excavating since 2022, when they finally got the green light in 2019 after years of wrangling, and the Israel Antiquities Authority gave the thumbs up, and they've gone through and they believe that they found the place where Jesus was buried, and it matches the description in the Bible. So there's still a lot more work to be done, but there are a lot of there are a lot of historical places and stories that may not be exactly as they were written about in the Bible. I don't want to get into a religious thing here, but there are some people that say, well, the Bible, it's 100% the Word of God. There are no mistakes in the Bible. It's exactly. And I will say that the difficulty when people say that is there are 4 Gospels. And if you read the 4 Gospels, they don't all match. So that does make it difficult to go with the story that every last single word in the Bible is 100% accurate. There's no mistakes in the Bible. Well, there are, because the Gospels don't match up. But the point is, there's certain things in the Bible that almost assuredly happened. And there are other things that, Noah's flood, for example. I got to talk to Stan Deo about some of this stuff. Noah's flood, the idea that it rained for 40 days and 40 nights and the entire earth all the way around was flooded. I mean, it seems unlikely that something like that could happen exactly as it was described. However, forget the Bible. Most ancient societies had stories of floods. It's a very, very, across all over the world. Native Americans, everywhere. They all have a flood story. And the likelihood is that there was some flood experience that happened. Perhaps it was, a widespread thing in a certain area of the world that people, talked about for generations afterwards until it was finally written down. Or if there were localized flooding in all sorts of places, and that's how the stories began. But there's certainly, all over the world, are flood myths, not just in the Bible. So, perhaps this was the tomb of the historical Jesus. I guess they'll continue to investigate, but that is from the Irish Star. So when we come back, we're going to totally flip the script, talk about apes and Bigfoot. Because there's a video out, came out a couple of weeks ago, allegedly of a Bigfoot climbing a tree. And if you go online and Google Bigfoot climbs tree, you'll probably see this particular video. It's been all over the place for the last couple of weeks. And we're going to talk about it, and then we're going to talk about apes and whether 100 men could beat an ape. Back in a moment, Observer Live. Back here in the show, Bryan Alvarez here, After Dark Radio. Sports Byline Broadcasting at Network, YouTube, Twitch. Every Wednesday, 2 Pacific, 5 Eastern. I wasn't expecting today to be spending most of the show talking about the Bible, but went to the break, and I was alerted by folks in the chat that today, of all days, a story just came out about how they may actually have found the site of Noah's Ark now. So, this from the Daily Mail, found it during the break. High in the mountains of Turkey sits a mysterious geological formation some researchers believe could be the remains of Noah's Ark. Now, a team of American researchers working near Mount Ararat has uncovered evidence of angular structures and a void deep within the mountain. Andrew Jones, an independent researcher with Noah's Ark Scans, used ground-penetrating radar to detect what appeared to be a 13-foot tunnel running through the center of the formation. The scans also captured 3 layers below the earth, matching the biblical description of the boat having 3 decks. Book of Genesis states, make a roof for the ark, finish it to a cubit above, and set the door of the ark at its side, make it with lower, second, and third decks. A new analysis claims to have found central and side corridors or hallways running through the boat. We're not expecting something that's fully preserved, said Jones. What's left is the chemical imprint, pieces of wood, and in the ground, the shape of a hull. It's 18 miles south of Mount Ararat, which is Turkey's highest peak. And in the Bible, it claimed that Noah's Ark came to rest on the mountains of Ararat after a 150-day flood. So they're scanning it. I mean, this story's been around for about 50 years, the alleged location of Noah's Ark. But it wasn't until somewhat recently that a lot of expeditions started going out there to try to find out what they could find out. So there's ground-penetrating radar. Scans have revealed angular structures 20 feet beneath the surface. And there's plenty more. So who knows? There's another one. Might have found a historical ark that matches the size of Noah's Ark. So there you go. All right, so I want to talk about apes. Might go back to this here in a while. If you want to email me about anything, you got any thoughts on any of this, Bryan@AfterDarkRadioshow.com is the email. That is Bryan@AfterDarkRadioshow.com. So how does this all start? Well, there's a video out of allegedly a Bigfoot climbing a tree. Now, I will say first off that, in my opinion, this is probably a bear because, Occam's razor and all. But the other issue is that the video in question, and you can find it on Google, just search Bigfoot climbs tree. You can search YouTube as well. I mean, it's just a couple of weeks old. The issue, obviously, is the issue we deal with all the time, which is until we get a body, I mean, whatever. There's no proof of Bigfoot. And, one of the issues is the evidence thus far is often we got a unidentified hair, which tells us nothing. We got a video that either looks terrible, so it could be anything, or it looks too good, so it has to be fake. That's what we're dealing with. This is one of those videos that does not look too good. I mean, I can't even tell you how many times, one of my buddies sent me this video, and they're like, check this out. And I looked at it, and I watched it, and I was like, what am I looking at? And they were like, Bigfoot climbing a tree. I looked at the video, I was like, what am I looking at? And they go, middle tree. And I look at the middle tree, and I said, what am I looking at? And finally, I'm like, can you screenshot this and circle what I'm supposed to be looking at? So they screenshot it, they circle what I'm supposed to be looking at. I look at it again, and I'm just like, what am I looking at? It's so far away. Like, they zoom in, and then it's a very jerky zoom out. It's like on probably some camera phone that it's not smooth at all. It's like a camera phone from 2006. But finally, after watching this video like 50 times, I'm like, I see. There's a figure next to a tree, and then on the last zoom out, you just see the figure go up. And, the first time I watched it and I finally saw what I was looking for, it was like the thing goes up right when the camera pans. And I'm like, are we sure something even went up and it wasn't like something in front of the camera and the camera pans and it looks like it goes up? And then, I watched it a bunch of times and finally it's like, okay, that does look like a blob going up another blob. Allegedly a Bigfoot climbing a tree. So I watched it and I watched it and I watched it and I watched it. And, if you go through the comments, there's the people that they just believe and they're like, oh man, you saw Bigfoot, amazing. And then there's the people that's like, well, that right there is a bear. I mean, it's a bear climbing a tree. Bears climb trees. A bear can stand on its hind legs holding onto a tree and then go up. So very likely it is a bear. But what's the point of all of this? Well, I watched the thing, it's there and then it goes up. It's there and then it goes up. It's there and then it goes up. So I go to the zoo a couple of weeks ago. Took the kids to the zoo. And kids were really into seeing the apes. And so I was like, all right, I'd like to go see some apes. So we go to the ape exhibit. And in the back of my mind, I'm thinking about the climbing Bigfoot. And I'm also thinking about, could 100 men beat one ape? Okay? So, I go there and there's the apes. And there's about 6 apes in this enclosure. They're gorillas, okay? And so there's like this real big ape. He's like the ape in charge. And he's just sitting there looking mean. And then there's like a couple of little baby apes. And then there's just like a few other, there's like a mom and some other apes. So I'm looking at him. And, my first thought obviously is, well, I definitely could not take that big ape by myself. I can tell you that much. That's a big dude. And it's even more amazing when you think about how apes, like, they're vegetarian. They're just eating, like, especially in the zoo, they're just, eating grass all day. This freaking thing is gigantic. So, watching this ape, and then I'm watching the other apes. They're all bored. They're in this enclosure. You presume they're bored. So then, here's the thing. I see 2 of these apes start to climb the tree, these little apes, okay? And they start, they climb a tree, and they've got, someplace they sleep at the top of this tree at the zoo. So I'm watching this ape climb this tree, and, apes are strong and everything. You see the videos online. This ape threw a log. This ape ran and hit the thing or whatever. But you really got to watch in real life apes climb to understand how strong these apes are. Now, the reason I'm bringing up this climbing ape is because I had just watched the video of the Bigfoot allegedly climbing the tree. And the Bigfoot's here, and then, whoop, he's up the tree. It's pretty rapid, actually. Well, that is not how these apes were climbing this tree. I mean, they climb the tree so slowly because they are so strong. It's not like a human climbing a rope where, you grab and then you, do a power thing and then you wrap your legs around and you do a power pull. I mean, it's just, slow, almost like sloths, slowly climbing this tree, taking their time. It's like if you went to the gym and you're bench pressed, you push up and then you do the negative. It's all negative. They're so slowly climbing this tree. So, my first thought is, well, that thing that I saw in that video did not climb the tree like these apes are climbing a tree. That thing just went right up that tree. So I watched this and I just thought, okay, well, that probably wasn't a Bigfoot, because Bigfoot allegedly it's like an ape, right? So then I Googled, apes and their muscle fibers, and they have very different muscle fibers than humans. Humans, we got the slow twitch and the fast twitch fibers. Apes have predominantly fast twitch fibers. So, they got longer muscle bellies, longer tendons, fast twitch fibers. So they're really built for explosive strength and the length of the fibers are just super strong. But what it said was apes are not built for endurance. And that's when I realized that, in fact, and this is unrelated to Bigfoot, but 100 men are beating an ape. That's all there is to it. Probably even 10 men. Because fact of the matter is that ape's going to be big, and he's going to be strong, and he's going to be powerful, and he's going to last about a minute. And then once that minute's over, you ever watch 2 geeks on the street fight, and they're out of shape? How long does that fight last? Doesn't last long. When you're watching UFC and you're seeing these guys training like crazy, this ape ain't training. So you take 100 guys, and the first 10 guys, they're dead. That ape is killing those dudes quick. Then that ape's getting tired. Next 10 guys, half of them are going to survive, half of them won't. Next 10 guys, that ape's done. It is done. Not built for endurance. They're built for short, boom, 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 and that's it. So anyway, that's what I learned at the zoo. I learned that 100 men are going to beat an ape, quite handily, in fact. And I learned that, but the one thing, too, about the Bigfoot is we don't know anything about Bigfoot. We don't know if it exists. If it does, what is it? We have no idea what the composition of the muscle fibers are. The muscle fibers of an ape are very different from the muscle fibers of a human, like the percentage of fast twitch to slow twitch. But, DNA-wise, they're only 2% different from us. Apes and humans carry 98% the same DNA. It's only a 2% difference in terms of DNA. But the way their bodies are structured and their muscle fibers, etc., they're very, very different. So we don't know anything about how a Bigfoot is constructed if they exist. So maybe that was a Bigfoot climbing a tree. I'm opening the phone lines after the break, everybody. Let's have some fun. After Dark Radio, Sports Byline Broadcasting Network. Back here on the show, After Dark Radio. Bryan Alvarez here. Sports Byline Broadcasting Network every Tuesday, 2 Pacific, 5 Eastern. You never know what's going to happen on this show, do you? No, you do not. We got a lot of questions here on the chat. And I got news. I've opened up the phone lines if you want to call. You got an After Dark related topic you want to talk about? The phone number, 618-762-3275. That is 618-762-DARK. 618-762-3275. 618-762-3275. Or you can just email me, Bryan at AfterDarkRadioShow.com. If you got something on your mind, go ahead and give us a call. If not, don't worry about it. But we had somebody here asking, if Noah's Ark is real, does that mean we are all the product of his incestuous grandchildren? Well, that's up to you to decide. Because the fact is, if they actually find a 3-story boat buried in Mount Ararat, and it matches exactly what was written in the Bible, then at that point you get to make your own choice. Choice 1 could be, the story in the Bible is exactly accurate. This fella built a big boat at the behest of the Lord, and he took 2 of every animal on the entire earth. I don't know how he got them all, but he did. He put them all in the boat. Off he went for 140 days. And then the waters subsided, and all the animals went out, and we repopulated the earth. You can believe that story if you want. Or you can believe that, hey, they found exactly what was written in the Bible in terms of where and what the boat looked like. And so what we can say for sure is that there actually was an ark that basically, was the basis of this story that ended up in the Bible. And it didn't need to be a worldwide flood. Didn't need to be 2 of every animal on the boat. But there was definitely a lot of water at some point, and some dude made a boat, and probably did take some animals on it. And then everyone told this story for generations afterwards, and it became a worldwide flood. Because the reality is, the way the world was back in the day, before the internet for you youngsters, wherever you were in the world, that was the whole world. So it could have been a very localized flood and a very localized story. But for those people in that localized area, that flood covered the entire world. So we'll see what happens when they continue their excavations. But that's the story that came out a couple of days ago about Noah's Ark. All right, Planet 9. When I was a kid, there were 9 planets. And then when I got older, they demoted Pluto, which doesn't seem right. So there became 8 planets. So now it appears we may have 9 planets again, but one of them is not Pluto. Evidence is from space.com. Evidence of a controversial Planet 9 uncovered in sky surveys taken 23 years apart. The best candidate yet for the elusive Planet 9 has been spotted in 2 deep infrared surveys taken 23 years apart. If this mystery object really is Planet 9, it would have a mass greater than Neptune and currently be about 700 times farther from the sun than the Earth is. The possibility of additional planets in our solar system has been proposed many times, going under such names as Planet X, because experts thought the concept of an extra planet in our vicinity of the cosmos could explain a perceived regularity in mass extinctions on Earth. So you can thank Planet X for that. Perhaps they said the periodic influx of comets that impact the Earth are pushed our way by an unseen planet. However, the supposed periodicity in mass extinctions, they're periodical is what it's trying to say, has not held up to scrutiny. And so the need for that particular Planet X has gone away, but that brings us to Planet 9. It's unrelated to the Planet X concept, was put forward in 2016 by 2 individuals in the California Institute of Technology to explain an unusual bunching of orbits of some objects in the Kuiper Belt, such as Sedna. The proposed Planet 9 would be more massive than Earth, orbit on a highly eccentric path that takes it hundreds of astronomical units from the sun. And an astronomical unit, because we're, humans, is the distance between the Earth and the sun. We no longer believe that the entire universe revolves around us, but an astronomical unit is still us to the sun and back. Actually, it's just us to the sun. That far away, it would be extremely difficult to detect. A team of astronomers led by Terry Long Fan has delved into the archives of 2 far-infrared all-sky surveys, and incredibly, they have found something that could possibly be Planet 9. So this was launched in 1983. The Japanese launched another one in 2006. And there was another active between 2006 and 2011. They were looking for objects and appeared to move. By the time they got a look, the amount of movement in the sky would be tiny, about 3 arc minutes per year at a distance of 700 astronomical units. But there's an extra motion that they had to account for. And so they believe there's a good chance that there is a 9th planet way out there. And I guess the deal now is we got to try to prove that that planet actually exists. So anyway, we might be back to 9 planets again. That'd be something if there were 9 when I was born, and they got rid of one, and then there was 9 when I died. And who knows, there might even be more. There's a lot of planetary discoveries, coincidentally, far outside of our solar system. We've discovered far more planets outside our solar system than we have discovered in our solar system. And it turns out we may have yet another one here. And, a lot of theories about life. There was a story that came out a couple of weeks ago. They believe they found a signature of life on another planet. But, one of the things about it is what they have discovered is a signature of life on this planet. And so the presumption is if this life signature is found on the other planet, well, that means there's a decent chance that planet has life. Water teeming with life was the way it was described. But, one of the problems is just because something is a signature of life on this planet doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be a signature of life on another planet, which kind of plays into, the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, SETI. And I always wondered about this too. What they do is they search for radio signals from other planets. Because, of course, we used radio. So I guess the idea was, we used radio here. Clearly, if there's life on another planet, they must also have discovered and used radio. But if you really think about it, I realize we are on Sports Byline USA, terrestrial radio right now. But how long has there been radio? If you want to think about from now to Noah's Ark, from now to the Garden of Eden, from now to the beginning of the world, either 6,000 or 4 billion years ago, whichever one you agree with, that's a long time. And we've had radio for 150 years or something like that? And even now, look at AM radio. It's possible it can make a comeback, but there's so much, we use so much internet now that, there's a decent possibility that if there are not tons and tons of, civilizations out there in the universe, what's the guarantee that any of them ever experimented with radio other than us? So what do we search for, to try to determine if there's life on other planets without actually going to the other planets? So, now what they look for is, is there, evidence of techno-signatures, basically? Is there evidence of any sort of technology on another planet? Is there evidence of Dyson spheres, which is like something that is built around the planet to harness the power of the sun? Are there, is there evidence of any of this stuff? So that's now more what they're looking for, as opposed to specific technologies that theoretically, and techno-signatures and biological signatures that might be exclusive to Earth. So looking for them elsewhere, we may not find any because they're exclusive to Earth. So Who knows? Let's go into the mailbag here. Let's see what we got. I'm going to go way back here. So we got a lot that we haven't read from a ways back. Okay, this is from MJ Washington. Says, I love all your shows. You and everyone have been really helping me with my depression recently. Thank you for an escape. Bear with me, this is bizarre and crazy. I study my family's genealogy using the different online methods. A few years ago, I learned that a family that has become family friends, we have known them since, quite a while ago. Started going to the same church as them. I'm friends with all the kids. At around the same age, I learned that my very distant cousin went to school with one of the dads. I know this may not seem crazy, but it is actually how we are related. My family's in Maryland. These Geithers were farmers back in the 1800s. One of their slaves was freed by the mother. Evan Geither had a baby with the housekeeper. The slave and the housekeeper got married, or the child of the housekeeper. The slave, whose name was John Howard, bought his wife and named her after his mother. Bought his wife and named her after his mother. Went on to have 9 kids. All of it connects to my family. This would be weird enough, or this could not be an After Dark topic, I don't know, but I can't think of anything other than this, but I think it's very cool. So he's got a photo of the genealogy here, and there's a reason people use the term small world. I mean, that'd actually be a good topic, People say small world, Say you've got a neighbor, you see him all the time, and then one day, just out of the blue, you decide you're going to take some trip to some, bizarre place, not like Disneyland or whatever, but you just go to some place, could be anywhere in the world, and boom, you go to the grocery store and there's your neighbor. They just happen to go to the same place, no knowledge whatsoever, and you go, small world. It seems weird. So maybe we should do that one of these days. Stories that you have experienced where it's like, my God, small world. How's that possible? This person here says, my mom used to work for Northern Nevada Correctional Center as a nurse. She had a lot of stories, including the time a man dies of what was reported as a heart attack when he was actually murdered by other inmates. What always stuck with me was Thomas Bean and why the Olympics will probably never come back to my state. There's not really much reporting on this, so I'm trying to get this as accurate as possible with the few sources I have that aren't someone who talked to him personally. 1960, the Winter Olympics came to Lake Tahoe, and everything went off without a hitch. Sonia McCaskey was a skier on the British team but lived in Reno, Nevada, went back home for a normal life until 3 years later. She had a young 18-year-old neighbor by the name of Thomas Bean who has basically no record of him except an old newspaper from 1963 that says the high school youth described at his trial as a rejected, unloved boy, decided one day he was going to kill, and his victim was Sonia McCaskey, a woman he had never seen before the day he killed her. He broke into her house, strangled her to death. Her body was defiled before being dismembered and stored away in a chest. I don't see it in the public record, but it was known in the prison that he also ate part of her corpse. It was bad enough. His plea of insanity was rejected. He was sentenced to death by the gas chamber as an 18-year-old. Tried to appeal multiple times but got rejected, but was then saved when in 1972 the Supreme Court overruled all pending death sentences, and it became just life in prison for him. That's how the Manson family ended up not being executed. My mom interacted with him many times. She never liked anything about him. She had to deal with all sorts of people. And I'll finish this when we come back from the break. After Dark Radio, Sports Byline Broadcasting Network. It's tuned to the show and they go, what in God's name are you talking about here today? The rest of the story of Thomas Bean, Gabriel here says, my mom interacted with this guy many times, never liked him. Had to deal with all kinds of people in that prison. Every inmate respected her as well as the other nurses. It wasn't the most uncommon thing for someone new in the prison to mouth off to her. Next thing they knew, they were being jumped for disrespecting the people who just wanted to help. She had to deal with the most deplorable humans who committed heinous crimes. Yet almost none of them scared her or made her feel uneasy, except for Thomas Bean. She no longer works there, but he did just recently become the longest-serving inmate in all of Nevada's history. He says, that's one story near my town. We also have 2 unsolved mysteries, episodes that tie directly to my town. One I'm sure you've heard of because it's a very popular case, the death of Christine Skubish, also known as the case of the Highway 50 Phantom, as well as a nearby town, the same town that Steve Austin currently lives in fact, with a hanging tree that has a short but interesting story to it. Let me know if you want to hear about those. I'll write in some other time talking about it. You kidding me? Of course I want to know about these. Send them to me. Brian at AfterDarkRadioshow.com. And that's it for today, everybody. We got to wrap it up. But I will be back. Hey, you want to talk wrestling? Tonight, Wrestling Observer Radio with Dave Meltzer. We got a lot of news to get into. He's still in Hawaii, but we are going to discuss all of the news. I was up earlier today, Wrestling Observer Live. A lot of solo shows lately, so I'm ready for a break. But that's that. And tomorrow, we'll be back with more, including Brian and Vinny's show, AEW, and NXT. You can listen to all of these shows at WrestlingObserver.com, F4WOnline.com/YouTube, Twitch.tv/F4W Video, as well as subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or YouTube. Thanks so much for listening, everybody. We'll talk to you next week to After Dark Radio, Sports Byline Broadcasting Network.